In this video, I will be reviewing the Yeswelder YWM-211P. This is a new machine from Yeswelder, and the thing that sets it apart from all of the other MIG welders in the Yeswelder lineup is that this one will do pulse MIG and also double pulse MIG welding. So that means this machine will do a great job at welding thin material and aluminum. In fact, Yeswelder says it will weld up to 1/4 inch thick steel, stainless steel, and aluminum, and it can also weld aluminum without the use of a spool gun. But don't worry, if you prefer to use a spool gun for your aluminum MIG welding, that can be done with the YWM-211P. You just have to purchase one separately. So I've been reviewing these Yeswelder machines for about a year now, and they just never cease to amaze me. Yeswelder keeps stepping up their game by adding features and improvements to the machines that they make. This one is capable of double pulse MIG welding, so that means you no longer have to use a TIG welder to weld thin sheets of aluminum and steel. This machine will allow you to use the easier method of MIG welding, and yes, we are going to be putting that to the test in this video. And before I get started, I do want to point out one thing. Yeswelder did send me this welder to try out, but they are not paying me for this review. So that means this review is 100% my honest opinion. And if you're interested in getting one of these welders for yourself, I've put links down in the description of the video. And remember, you can always save 10% off of your order at the Yeswelder website by using the discount code MAKINGSTUFF at checkout. So before we get started, let's take a look inside the box and see what comes with the YWM-211P MIG welder. First, we have a ground clamp. Next is the MIG torch, and it does have some rubber grips here on the handle and some pretty heavy-duty strain relief here on each end of the cable. And you also get a graphene liner with that MIG torch, and this is used in case you want to MIG weld aluminum with the torch and not a spool gun. The welder also comes with a stinger in case you want to do some stick welding. The welder also comes with a gas hose, but it does not come with a regulator. So if you don't have a regulator, that's something extra that you will have to buy. The welder also comes with a few extra tips and a wrench to make it easier to change those tips. It comes with 3 extra drive rollers for the different types of wire and the different sizes of wire that you may be using with this welder. And the welder is a 240 volt welder, but it does come with an adapter so that you can run it on standard 120 volt house current. All right, so I need to set this machine up so that I can do some welding, and I'm going to start off by welding some steel. So I need to put the appropriate drive roller in the machine. So I'm going to be using 035 wire. That means I need the 0.9 millimeter drive roller, and it just slides in right here. And this is where Yeswelder listens to their customers, because on some of their other MIG machines, this was kind of hard to get to. There was a piece of sheet metal here blocking it, and you had to reach over and down inside there, and it was rather hard to change the roller. Now you can see this is all cut out here, and it's very easily accessible. Next, I'm going to load the wire into the machine, and here's another improvement that Yeswelder has made. They've got this large nut on here that holds everything into place. I just want to point out this is reverse threaded, so it's actually lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. So I actually turn it to the right to undo it, but you can see this easily goes on, and then that's how fast you can change a roll of wire. So now that I've got the wire threaded through the machine, I need to hook up the MIG torch, and I'm leaving the stock liner in here because that is the one that is used for steel, which is what we're going to be welding right now. And I just want to point out that all of the connections are made right here. There's no extra hoses or wires that you need to hook up. All you have to do is plug this in the front of the welder and then lock it down, and you're ready to go. So the last thing I need to do before I can start welding is I need to feed that wire up through the torch and out the end here, and that can easily be done by pressing in on the right knob that is on the front of the machine. All right, so I've got the wire fed through here, and I do just want to point out this torch, this is a good feeling torch. It's very good quality. You know what a quality tool feels like when you hold it in your hand. Well, this has that feel. This red here is a rubber grip. It's got the stress relief here that is ball and socket along with the spring so you don't kink your hose over on the end. And then something else that I haven't seen on a MIG torch before is it has this ceramic cup on it, which kind of looks like a swirl ring that you would see on a plasma cutter. And it just fits over the end here. And then the tip, here's one of the heavy duty tips here. The tip just goes through the wire and screws on the end here. And now, if I install the cap, this is ready to start MIG welding. All right, let's just go over the front of the machine before we get started here. This is the display, and there are two knobs and this row of buttons right here. And each button corresponds to a column here on the display. The first is the mode. And the modes you can go into are MIG, Pulse MIG, DC lift TIG, and stick. Next is the type of trigger you want. We've got 2T, 4T, 4TL, and spot. The next column is your wire diameter, and the choices are 0.045, 0.035, 0.030, and 0.023. And then the next column is how you would go in and you would set some of your auxiliary settings like inductance, and you change the value by turning the right knob, and you can choose which setting you want by turning the left knob. And you can see here I'm going to use the synergic settings on this weld. And then last but not least is the type of wire you're going to be using, or not wire, the gas. And you've got aluminum, which would be 100% argon, stainless steel. You've got a CO2 argon mix, or then straight up CO2. So for this, I'm going to be using regular MIG, 2T, 035 wire, and I need to change this to an argon CO2 mix. So here's something else I wanted to show you. This machine does have 10 presets on it. So when you get those perfect settings and you're getting awesome welds, you can come in here and you can save up to 10 settings just by pushing this button here. And you've got 0 through 9, and you just select where you want it to be saved to. And you click the save button. And it's just that simple. It saves your settings. So the next time you come through here and you want to weld and you want those same results as you had before, you don't have to go back to a notebook or a piece of paper and look and see what those settings were. Just come to your presets and load it right here. All right, so I've got some 14 gauge steel here that I'm going to try and MIG weld. I've got the machine set to 125 amps and 17.3 volts. I think that's going to give us a good weld. Let's try it out and see how it works. And that is not bad at all. That's the first weld right out of the box. It looks like it's making some good weld on some 16 gauge steel. Let's step it up a bit and see what else I can find in the scrap bin. So I did some digging around in my scrap bin, and the thickest thing I could find was some 3/16 inch steel. Yeswelder says that the maximum that this welder will do is 1/4 inch. So we're close to the limit right here with this 3/16. Let's set it up here and see how well it will weld it. All right, so there we go. That's not bad at all. I did screw up a little there on the end. My hand slipped, so I need to work on my MIG technique a little bit, but all in all, that made a pretty decent weld on this 3/16 inch steel. All right, so the YWM-211P does an awesome job on mild steel, and I know a lot of you guys are probably here because you want to see how well this machine MIG welds aluminum and thin material. So let's set the machine up so that we can MIG weld some aluminum. Okay, so the first thing I need to do to get this set up for aluminum is to put the right drive roller in. And on aluminum, you want a U-groove roller. And you can see here it says U.9. That's what I need for 035 aluminum wire. And then I just need to set the spool of wire through the drive roller and out the front of the machine. All right, so the machine is set up to do aluminum. Now I've got to set the torch up, and that means I've got to change the liner out. You have to use this graphene liner when you're using aluminum because it is more slippery, I guess is the word that I'm looking for, on the inside, and that aluminum will travel through here a lot easier than it will with the stock liner. And the way you change it out is you just unscrew this end here. And it helps to have this out in as much of a straight line as possible when you do this, because if you have it coiled up, it's going to be harder to get the liners in and out. But I'm just pulling the old one out. And then I will install the new liner like so. And you can see here's the little spring. That's the other end of the liner sticking out. And I do have some extra here, and I do need to trim this. I did have to do this with my last MIG welder that also would MIG weld aluminum. The liner was just a little bit too long and it had to be trimmed. And then just like before, to get the aluminum to feed all the way out through the end of the torch, I'm just going to press and hold the right button. And then one other thing I'm going to do is I had to change the gas over because when you're welding aluminum, you have to use 100% argon. And for that steel, I was using an argon CO2 mix. So I let air into the system. I'm going to purge that out, and you can do that just by pressing the left button in. All right, so the machine and torch are now set up to weld aluminum, and I went through my scrap bin. I found some 1/8 inch aluminum plate, and we will see how well this works. Now I've got the machine set up in pulse mode. That's single pulse mode, so it's going to use an AC pulse frequency, and that's going to help reduce the amount of heat that goes into the aluminum to help keeping it from burning through and warping. If you've ever MIG welded aluminum, you know that it wants to warp and melt and deform rather easily. That's because it's a good conductor of heat. So that pulse is going to help keep the heat down in this part, and you will also be able to hear the difference. It's going to make more of a buzzing noise rather than the typical noise you would hear from a regular MIG gun. All right, so this is what it did, and I'm very excited because I have never gotten a weld this good on 1/8 inch thick aluminum, and it gets better. Let's flip it over here on the bottom. No burn through at all. You can't even tell that that piece was welded. Same on the back. No burn through, no melting on the back side. This machine is awesome. All right, so let's try something thinner. I went digging through my scrap bin, and the thinnest piece of aluminum I could find was this 1/16 of an inch thin aluminum. And I will admit, I did this off camera using the MIG torch that came with the machine, and it just wasn't going to happen. I couldn't get good, consistent results with that MIG torch, but I did hook up the spool gun, and I got some really good results. So let me show you what I can get out of this machine welding 1/16 inch aluminum. Now also, I did put this in double pulse mode. So it's on an AC frequency pulse on the arc, plus it goes from a high to a low to a high to a low. It oscillates the amperage I think it does it 1.5 times a second. That's what I've got it set to. And what that does is it keeps the heat down in the material by alternating those amps. So you'll hear that. You'll hear it go from high to low to high to low. It'll make that buzzing kind of frequency noise, and that's what's going on. It's that double pulse going to work. So let's see what we can do on this 1/16 inch aluminum. All right, so there's the weld that I just made on 1/16 inch aluminum. It just keeps getting more awesome. This machine is just remarkable. Now, I did get a little bit of heat soak right here and a little bit on the back there. But man, when have you ever seen a MIG weld like that on 16th inch aluminum? So let me show you. I did some work off camera and I tried dialing the machine in a little bit better, did some practicing and all. Here's another weld that I made. I'm going to show you it is possible. 16th inch aluminum, no heat soak, nothing. And you're getting that type of a weld, that quality of a weld. That's just unheard of on 16th inch aluminum. Okay, so up until now, I have been welding aluminum and steel with the YWM-211P on my workbench. And everything I've been welding has been scrap. And I know what some of you guys might be thinking, what about some real world scenarios? Well, if you've been watching my channel and you're a subscriber, you know that I have been working on an aluminum jet boat. This is a kit that I purchased, and it's all 100% aluminum. I've been welding on it for quite a while now, and it's time for me to weld the intake in. The hull on the boat is 1/4 inch thick, and the intake is 1 inch thick solid aluminum. So I've got the spool gun set up on this welder. Let's go over here on the jet boat and see if I can weld a 1 inch thick intake onto a 1/4 inch thick aluminum hull. Okay, so here's the quality weld I got out of the YWM-211P on this 1/4 inch thick aluminum with this 1 inch thick aluminum intake. And man, am I happy with the quality of this. I did have to start and stop in a few places because the heat was soaking through my glove and it started to burn my hand. And I also want to point out that I had to turn the pulse off because on this thicker stuff, you want the heat to penetrate into it. And the pulse, the only advantage to that is it reduces the heat. So on thinner material, you want the pulse, but on this thick stuff, you just want to do straight up MIG welding, which is what I did right here. All right, so let's wrap up this video. First, let me tell you a few things about the machine. It will do TIG welding, but only DC lift TIG. That means it will only TIG weld steel and stainless steel. It will not TIG weld aluminum because you need AC TIG for that, and this machine will not AC TIG. And the reason I didn't do any TIG welding in this video is the machine does not come with a TIG torch, and I don't have a TIG torch that will fit this machine. Also, a few pros and cons with this machine. First, it will MIG weld aluminum. It will do the thicker stuff. It will go down to about 1/8 of an inch. But I found out with my experience that anything below 1/8 of an inch was almost impossible to do with the MIG torch that comes with the machine. I needed a spool gun to get down and do the thinner stuff like the 1/16 of an inch aluminum. And if you're going to do a big project like a jet boat right here, go ahead and buy the spool gun because you won't regret it. You'll get much more consistent and better welds, and it's just an all-around better setup the MIG torch that comes with it, it does MIG weld aluminum, and in my opinion, it's good for small projects. Like if you were going to repair a jet boat, it'd be good for that. But like I said, if you're going to be doing a big project like a jet boat, buy that spool gun. You won't regret it. And it is sold separately. It does not come with this machine. And one other thing I want to point out about MIG welding with this machine is if you're going to use that stock torch that comes with it, you have to use 5356 welding wire. That's because that welding wire is more rigid and the machine can actually push it all the way up through to the MIG torch. If you try to use 4043, it is too soft and it will bird nest in the machine. So that's my review of the Yeswelder YWM-211P. Remember, I have got links down in the description of the video, and you can also use that discount code Making Stuff on the Yeswelder webpage at checkout, and you can save 10% off your entire order. And if you made it this far in the video, you are awesome. And if you aren't a subscriber, please consider subscribing and ringing that bell so you don't miss any upcoming Making Stuff videos. And thanks for watching.